to here. Then we're going to get the halfway spot, and this is at 3 and just slightly over a half, so that's 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. It'll put me in the middle.
Hello?
This is the line you want to make sure that you get all the way around, because this is going to be an axis by which you turn this later. Now, I need to shorten this up. I'm going to use a Bedan tool. I don't know if everybody has one, but I'll tell you, I can't live without it. I make tendons with it all the time. Get this out of here, because we're not done with that. Now I've got a piece that's just as long this way as it is this way. So that's the beginning of the sphere, since the sphere is the same dimension all the way around. I guess before I go any further, I probably ought to start passing some of these around so that they get some time to get around. These are some ideas of what you can do with spheres. This is a constructed piece out of 2 pieces of Purple Heart, bloodwood, and then maple. This is a piece of exceptionally curly maple that it was a found. What I try to do is take as much off of this surface as I do this surface with each cut. Don't try to take it all off here and then try to do it all off here, otherwise you're going to be all messed up. This is a detail gouge, by the way. For this operation you can use a bowl gouge. I don't like to use my 1/2 inch bowl gouge for something like this because this is kind of a small piece. But you can use a 3/8 fingernail bowl gouge like this one, which I really like. I love this tool, as a matter of fact. I use it a lot. Or you can use a detail gouge, which I also like, because it enables you to do some really nice shear cuts, which help when you're making spheres. But a detail gouge is something, if you've got some money from Christmas or whatever left over and you need to have another gouge and you don't have a detail gouge, look into it, because they're really nice gouges. And you can do a lot with them. I'm just rotating the gouge. As you can see, I've got the tool rest on about a 45. When you're working with spheres, you want to keep your tool rest as close as you can. This is where good tool control is a must. And that's why I like to think that doing spheres teaches you good tool control. One of the hardest things to learn, at least it was for me, and it still is to some degree, is getting this shape as a perfect profile. And what I did is I took a tennis ball and had it sitting up in front of my lathe just so I could have a reference for that type of curvature, because it's about the size of a 3-inch ball. But if you want to do some measuring on this profile to see if you're correct, what you can do is you can make a paper cutout if you want to. The problem is you've got to have a different cutout for every different size sphere you make, and every 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch difference isn't going to work. You can't make a universal profile that's going to work. One of the things that I found that works the best is anything that's round. This is just a piece of copper pipe. This is a piece of plastic pipe. It's a coupler. They're perfectly round. A big washer will work too. If you got about an inch and a quarter washer, it would work just fine. All you need to do is put it on the piece. If it rocks this way, it means you've got a high spot. If it's rocking front to back, you've got a low or a flat spot or a low spot. So if you take this, I'm rocking just a little bit because I still got that line there. You can see that. But you can see here, that's barely moving. And that little bit, you know, that isn't going to hurt. But it's perfect there. So all I got to do is knock this off. Same with this plastic piece. It barely moves. It doesn't move at all that way. It's just right here with this high spot. So those are two things you can use as a gauge if you want to. I don't use them that often, but it's nice when you're learning. I used to use them all the time when I was learning. Here I'm making a shear cut. Because I found you're doing a lot of end grain, side grain movement with the wood, and sometimes you get a nice, most of the time you can get a nice clean cut that way, without high low spots. Yeah, I'm still a little bit high right there again. Somebody say something back there? Now, Ray's a lot better left-handed than I am, but I'm learning. You notice I'm shutting the lathe off every time I move the tool rest. It's a good idea to get into that habit, because sometimes when you've got a big piece on there and the tool rest happens to slip and it collides with that rotating piece of wood, you'll say, oh, I wish I had turned it off. Now I'm going to cheat and go back to right-handed to finish this. But at least this gives you some practice in turning left-handed. Again, I'm doing a shear scrape because I'm on end grain. Let's see what that looks like. Ooh! God, it's good.
You're good.
That scares me.
You don't want it to be round looking at it on the screen.
That scares me.
It's good oval up there.
That PVC
Yeah.
Now, we've got it to here. We're done, right, Alfred?
No.
No. Okay, yeah. We got some little thingies on the end there. What we got to do now is remount the piece, and we're going to need to make a sphere chuck. I've got some that are already made here, but I can show you, and this will work. Basically, a sphere chuck is nothing more than a piece of wood turned into a cylinder, put a tenon on the end, and then turn a cup face on the inside. The main thing that you want to do is make sure that your cup face is deep enough. Make sure that it's deep enough so that your sphere doesn't rest on anywhere on the inside. You want the sphere to be resting right on this outside ridge out here. So it's like this. Okay? So I was going to turn one, but we're running a little bit late on time, so there's no really any real need to do that because everybody knows how.
Just a question.
Yes.
Is it spherical or conical?
This?
Yeah. In other words, is it straight going in or is it sphere?
Tapered.
Tapered this way in here?
It's more of a cone.
Yeah, it's got a taper to it, so you can run different size spheres if you wanted to.
What do you say?
Sure.
Conical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Learned something new today.
Comical. Hey, Roger.
Okay.
Mike. Yeah, if you don't have one, is a safe drive. These are really inexpensive. This is a cheapie that I bought when Sears was still making lathe tools, or selling lathe tools, 10 years ago. And it's starting to get pretty well worn out. But One Way makes a very good one. There are lots of them on the market, but it's a very nice piece to have, especially for small stuff like this. Or even some bigger stuff. I've turned, big pieces like this with a safe drive. But they're very, very forgiving.
Roger's got one of them.
Mm-hmm. He's got everything.
Yeah, Roger does.
Roger said people have it. He's like us. We're in the poor area.
He's got the good paintbrushes.
All right. With a sphere chuck, you don't have to mount it too tight with your 4-jaw chuck because really it's just friction hell. One thing I forgot to bring.
I noticed that didn't have any teeth.
Scraper.
Safety chuck.
It wasn't. Yeah.
So what I'll do is
It compressed. It cuts in.
just use
That cylinder. Yeah.
the bowl gouge. Anytime
High school we used them.
you're making a sphere, you want to make sure that your sphere chuck is perfectly round. A lot of these I make out of green wood, but even after they've sat for maybe a month or two, they're going to move a little bit. You'd be surprised. So you can see this one's moving just a little bit, but it's really not too bad. But if you don't have it just perfect, you're never going to get a round sphere. And I learned that 5 or 6 years ago. I was fighting one. I couldn't figure out why the thing wouldn't go round. And then I come to find out my sphere chuck wasn't round either. Usually do this with a scraper, just give it a light touch. I forgot to bring one. So I'll just use a bowl gouge. You can hear it. Now, another little item that you can make, and this is, I think came out of American Woodturner magazine last year. is an adapter you can put on your tailstock, if you have, as long as you have a revolving center with threads, to help push your piece against the sphere chuck. Okay? And these are really easy to make. All this is a 3/4 inch nut. It's 3/4,
10.
what is it, 3/4 8 or 3/4 10?
3/4
Whatever
10.
coarse thread.
10.
This is 3/4 10. You can go to any hardware store and get these. And all I did was take and turn a cylinder in the 4-jaw chuck. I'll put it out here like this, like that was in the chuck. Put a drill bit 1 inch, and I think this is inch and, once you get the cylinder, corner to corner on an 1 1/4 8 is about, or 3/4 8 is, this is about 1 1/4 inch from corner to corner. And what you want to do is drill a recess down inside so that you can recess the nut in here. And then you have to allow for this amount of the revolving center to get down inside there. So what I did is I took about a 7/8 Forstner bit and then went even deeper.
Yeah.
So you got a little bit of a ledge here for the nut to sit on. You got some relief for this to be able to screw on and go up tight against the shoulder on the back. Just put some epoxy glue in there, let it sit overnight. When you're done, let me do this one. I made 2 different sizes. And I'm gonna, here, you can pass this one around. Just screw that on. You need to make sure that this surface is now perpendicular or flat to the plane of the center. So all you have to do,
Put the pin in there and turn it.
there's a hole here. I just put a roofing nail in there with a piece
Yeah.
of tape around it to keep it from flying out. Put this in the spindle and turn a surface, concave surface. Just a very slight concave surface is all you need, because all you're doing is pushing. You're using this to push against there, like that. But American Woodturner magazine, I think, is where that came from. And I'll tell you, they've been really helpful. All right, now what we're going to do is turn this on a different axis. Since I don't have a belt sander or a bandsaw here, typically what I will do is knock these nibs off. But if you're careful when you first start out and don't try to take everything off at once, you can knock these off without shifting this around in the chuck. So what we're going to do, bring this up.
How do you find the center?
You want to keep this line parallel or right on the mark of your center line for your bed. At this point, you're not making contact all the way around here because you're not exactly a spherical shape. So you're always going to have a gap here and a gap here. And if you notice, this gap, you can't see it from the camera angle, this gap is a little bit bigger than this one. So what I'm going to do is shift it down just a little bit so that they're equal. Otherwise, you're going to be cutting off more on one side than the other. All right. Now, let's see what we can do here. Get my detail gouge.
This. Videotaping the whole
Everything's clear?
That needs to be round, right?
Pardon?
So that should be, you shouldn't see a wobble like you're seeing right now in the surface, right?
Right. You'll see a shadow. There'll be a shadow on the surface.
Right, so does that mean you need to change how it's sitting in the chuck?
No,
The shadow.
it's just I'm not quite perfectly round yet.
Okay.
So I'm going to take it very gingerly off these.
The shadow will eventually go away, right?
That's right, that's what you're cutting. I also found that it works best if you can run the lathe at fairly higher speeds than you might typically run, because you've got a fairly small diameter here and it's not a big deal. But it seems like it becomes easier to cut these if you run it at a fairly good RPM. Why are you doing that?
Ooh.
That's all right. Once again, a shear scrape or a shear cut. Don't try to make it totally round the first cut. You're going to move this probably a half a dozen times within that chuck as you revolve it around, and I'll show you. All right, now we're going to move it 90 degrees around on this line. You can see I'm already cutting part of that line off, which I didn't particularly want to do. But sometimes it happens. About 90 degrees. So I've got this uncut portion here, and I've got another larger uncut portion here. I don't like the way that's wobbling. If you notice an unusual wobble, you might want to reset. So you shouldn't be too far out. Yeah, I can see why. All right. That's better.